Launch Director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission Director.
3,
You have permission
2.
to launch.
We have ignition of the RS-68A main engine. And we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket.
Mach 1, Max Q, and we have indication of spacecraft separation.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Lenhoff. I'm a systems engineering lead at ULA and your host for today's Delta IV Heavy launch of NROL-68. I'm here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where liftoff is currently scheduled for 5:18 a.m. Eastern. In addition to watching our webcast, you can also follow live mission progress at ulalaunch.com. In a few seconds, the launch count will enter the second of 2 planned holds. At this time, the team is not working any issues. At the request of our customer, we'll end today's live coverage following payload fairing jettison. We have experienced some unsettled conditions here at Space Coast, but the weather looks to be in our favor this morning. Let's take a look at the forecast recently provided by Space Launch Delta 45 Weather Officer Mark Berger. Here are the numbers. The probability of violating launch constraints is less than 10%. Ground winds are 15 to 20 knots out of the south, and the temperature is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Our primary concerns are violation of the cumulus cloud rule. Today's launch is for the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. The NRO is the leader in developing, acquiring, launching, and operating the nation's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites to secure and expand America's advantage in space. The NROL-68 mission will strengthen the NRO's ability to provide a wide range of timely intelligence information to national decision makers, warfighters, and intelligence analysts to protect the nation's vital interests and support humanitarian efforts worldwide. This is the 15th flight of a Delta IV Heavy rocket and ULA's 156th launch. Let's learn more about this heavy lift rocket, which is the only rocket capable of launching the NROL-68 mission.
Built in Decatur, Alabama, the Delta IV Heavy is the only operational rocket qualified to integrate and launch NROL-68. 3 RS-68A engines power the triple booster first stage, and RL-10 propels the Delta Cryogenic Second Stage, or DCSS. Sitting atop the DCSS is the NROL-68 payload, encapsulated in a 5-meter diameter metallic tri-sector payload fairing. Launch processing activities begin with transporting and lifting the booster and DCSS onto the fixed launch platform at Space Launch Complex 37. Next, the encapsulated payload fairing is lifted and mated to the DCSS. Final preps were underway when 40 hydraulic cylinders at pressures nearing 3,500 psi raised the Mobile Service Tower, or MST, about 8 inches. A carriage transporter system, traveling at a quarter mile per hour, then moves the MST to its launch position, approximately 345 feet north of the rocket. 100 feet wide, 300 feet tall, and weighing about 10 million pounds, the MST protects the rocket and payload from weather here on Florida's Space Coast. The Delta IV Heavy stands 235 feet, or more than 23 stories, and once fully fueled, weighs 1.6 million pounds. Equipped with 3 RS-68A engines, this rocket produces more than 2 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. With the MST rolled back, the launch team transitions to fueling and other final preparations.
ULA's Delta IV Heavy will head south from Space Launch Complex 37. Here's a look at today's flight.
To mitigate the fireball created by the hydrogen-burning Delta IV Heavy rocket, the staggered engine start sequence begins with ignition of the launch table HBOs, burning off the excess hydrogen injected into the flame duct. Next, the starboard Delta IV ROFI lights, igniting its RS-68A engine. Then, the center and port RS-68A engines ignite to generate more than 2.1 million pounds of total thrust to lift the 1.6 million pound triple-core rocket off the pad. Shortly after liftoff, Delta begins a pitchover to attain the proper flight path while minimizing the pressure the vehicle experiences during flight. 79 seconds into flight, the Delta IV reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound. 2 seconds later, the rocket experiences maximum dynamic pressure as it travels through Earth's atmosphere. With propellant depleted in the port and starboard boosters, the engines shut down and the boosters are jettisoned to shed their weight. The remaining booster engine then throttles to full power to maximize performance against gravity losses. Once propellant levels deplete in the center booster, the engine shuts down. Delta IV separation then activates to release the first stage. The vehicle now weighs approximately 6% of what it did at liftoff. Following jettison of all 3 boosters, the Delta Cryogenic Second Stage, or DCSS, main engine ignites. During ascent, NROL-68 is protected inside a 5-meter diameter payload fairing. After traveling through the densest part of Earth's atmosphere, the payload fairing is jettisoned. The Delta IV Cryogenic Second Stage will carry the payload to its final orbital destination, where it will begin its national security mission.
On the Delta Heavy rocket, we see mission artwork provided by the NRO in addition to the U.S. flag and the ULA, Space Force, and Delta logos. Note the number 388 inside the Delta logo, signifying this launch's place in Delta history. The rocket also includes dedications to teammates who are no longer with us. Let's remember our ULA teammates.
Today's flight is dedicated to Mark Anthony, Steve Hord, and Jim Webble. Mark Anthony joined the Decatur, Alabama production team in 1999 in the Skin, Ring, and Dome Work Center, supporting the automated ultrasonic scanning system. During his career, he also supported the build and test of the Delta II rocket before transitioning to the Delta IV final assembly area, where he quickly became a critical member of the build and test team. Outside of work, Mark was a member of the Semper Fi Gold Star racing team that sponsored children who had lost a parent while serving in the military. Anyone who had the pleasure of meeting Mark quickly knew about his wife, Amanda, and their children, Emily and Ryan, whom he loved dearly. Steve Hord served in the U.S. Marine Corps and continued to serve his country when he transitioned to aerospace. Steve held numerous positions in his more than 36-year career, including Delta IV Launch Operations Quality Engineer, Launch Operations Quality Manager, and Senior Quality Manager. Steve was a key member of the team, merging the Atlas and Delta quality management systems. And after ULA was formed, Steve became a supplier quality leader and went on to support ULA's rockets on both coasts within the Safety, Quality, and Mission Success Organization. The military honors a fallen hero by flying a missing man formation in their honor. Today, Stephen Hord is that missing man, and his absence will be recognized by all who were privileged to work with him. Jim Webble had a distinguished 22-year career with the Launch Operations Propulsion Engineering Team, where he worked on the Delta II program before moving to the Delta IV and Atlas V programs. Over the years, he became a critical source of knowledge on the Delta IV second stage. Jim had an outgoing personality, and he willingly shared his knowledge with others, training a number of engineers, technically and culturally, on why we do things the way we do. Jim touched the lives of many on the ULA team, from Cape Canaveral to Vandenberg.
Over at Space Launch Complex 41, ULA's other East Coast pad, our team is preparing for the first flight of our new Vulcan rocket. Part of that preparation included firing the rocket's BE-4 engines, which happened earlier this month. We're looking at the footage of the rocket rolling from the Vertical Integration Facility, or VIF, to the launch pad. The Vulcan rocket is sitting atop the Vulcan launch platform as it travels on rail tracks to the pad. The trip is a third of a mile and takes about 20 minutes. Once at the pad, the team conducted a full countdown, including taking the booster and Centaur stages. The test culminated with a successful flight readiness firing. With this launch, we are also remembering NRO teammates. Here is Mission Director Colonel Chad Davis.
Copy. This morning's NROL-68 launch is dedicated to the memory of Vince Martelli, Patrick Wang, Steve Vess, Manny Salinas, and Ernie Frank. Together, Vince, Patrick, Steve, Manny, and Ernie dedicated countless hours of their deep technical expertise to ensure the incredible success of a multitude of launches. Their warm personalities, team spirit, and phenomenal leadership will be remembered by the aerospace and launch communities. To our fellow patriots, rest in peace. MD out.
LC flight control, launch on time verified.
Roger. LC switch to the ready position. All steps are complete prior to the status check.
L minus 8 minutes.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We remain in the planned 15-minute built-in hold as launch preparations continue. In a few moments, launch conductor Scott Barney will pull the launch team for the final go to pick up the count. 27 engineers and managers are pulled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check before launch vehicle for all Delta vehicle systems, ground systems, and the spacecraft, and U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness pull includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final pulling of the launch team.
L minus 7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. First stage systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Second stage systems, locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control. Go. COM.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operations support.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ASGAS.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Red line monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Ops safety manager.
Go.
EOA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC. Verified T0 is set for 0918 Zulu.
Verified.
L minus 6 minutes.
MEQ. Establish swing arm lock pins pull.
Active.
Polling is complete. The ULA launch team and the NRO mission director are go for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will hear Scott Barney guiding the team through the final steps in the countdown procedure. Several critical activities occur in the final minutes, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the 3 boosters and the DCSS, in addition to arming the flight termination system. At T-minus 15 seconds, the launch table HBOs at the base of the rocket are ignited to burn off excess hydrogen. At T-minus 7 seconds, the starboard engine is ignited. At T-minus 5 seconds, the port and center engines are ignited. Once the Delta IV Heavy lifts off, you'll hear flight commentator Rob Kesselman providing launch vehicle ascent data.
1 SV configured for launch.
Roger. All steps are complete prior to terminal count.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
T-minus 4 minutes and count. Three minutes, 55 seconds. Ground pyros enabled.
The clock is resumed and we are go for launch at 5:18 a.m. Eastern. With liftoff approaching, we're raising the volume on our launch team so you can hear the final preparations taking place.
3 minutes, 25 seconds.
Second stage lock secure at flight level.
Three minutes, 7 seconds. Two minutes, 49 seconds.
FTS internal.
CBC locks at flight pressure and flight level.
Minutes.
Hydraulic pressure 4,000.
Vehicle internal. 1 minute, 55 seconds.
Launch sequencer start.
CBC LH2 at flight pressure and flight level.
One minute, 40 seconds.
SCS launch enabled.
137.
T-minus 90 seconds. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
1 minute, 20 seconds.
OCU's arm. FCS count started.
T-minus 1 minute.
Engine start box go.
Rock, report range status.
Range green.
50 seconds.
Second stage LH2 secure at flight level.
30 seconds.
Status check. Go Delta. Go NROL-68.
Fifteen seconds.
Roughy ignition.
10.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We have ignition. 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket, carrying NROL-68 for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Vehicle has now begun the pitchover maneuver. Now 25 seconds into flight, vehicle performance looks nominal.
You are hearing the voice of Rob Kesselman providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Core booster has now reached the desired partial thrust level. Vehicle performance continues to look good. We are now 5 miles in altitude, 5.8 miles downrange distance. Vehicle is now passing through Max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. Mach 1, Delta IV Heavy is now supersonic. Now at 110 seconds into flight, we are now 14 miles in altitude, 12 miles downrange distance. The second stage RCS system pressurization valve has fired, and the RCS is now pressurizing to flight levels. Delta IV has now gone to closed loop guidance. We have 3 minutes remaining in the boost phase of flight. Delta IV rocket now weighs 1/2 of what it did at liftoff, burning propellant at a rate of almost 5,000 pounds per second. We're now 210 seconds into flight. We have 30 minutes remaining until the port and starboard booster engines cut off. Vehicle performance continues to look good, with the port and starboard engines burning at the maximum power level, and the core RS-68 burning at the partial thrust level. Port and starboard boosters are now throttling down. The engine response looks good. Port and starboard cutoff, and we've had separation of the 2 side boosters. Core booster is now throttling back up, and the maximum power level has been achieved. The upper stage lock system has begun the boost phase chill-down sequence to begin thermal conditioning of the RL-10 engine. 1 minute remains in the booster phase of flight. Upper stage fuel system has now begun the boost phase chill-down sequence. We're now 300 seconds into flight, flying at an altitude of 70 miles, downrange distance of 370 miles. Delta IV core vehicle booster performance continues to look good. The R-68 is now throttling down. And Pico. And we've had stage 1-2 separation and ignition on the RL-10. Correction. Deployment of the nets. And now ignition on the RL-10 for the first burn. Upper stage performance looks good at this time. We have an indication of payload fairing separation.
This is Delta Mission Control at T plus 6 minutes and 45 seconds. We just heard flight commentator Rob Kesselman confirm the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. At this time, we're going to end our live coverage. For more information about the Delta IV Heavy, please visit ulalaunch.com. I'm Andrea Linhoff, and thank you so much for joining me today. Before we sign off, let's take one more look at that beautiful launch of the Delta IV Heavy carrying NROL-68.
15 seconds.
Roll for ignition.
10.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We have ignition. 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket carrying NROL-68 for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Vehicle has now begun the pitch over maneuver. Now 25 seconds into flight, vehicle performance looks nominal.
You are hearing the voice of Rob Kesselman providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Core booster is